18. Holy cow. Number 18 tonight out of the 31 days of vintage Halloween masks. Uh-oh, I hear a couple of cats creeping in. So I'm going to start the video off with a couple of beasts of a mask. They're not super vintage. They're a little vintage. They're made by a good friend of mine who is not only one of the most talented guys I know, he's one of the nicest guys in all of Maskland. I'm talking about my friend Justin Mabry. Those of you that watch this, that are mask people, know exactly who I'm talking about. Justin is an independent mask maker, friend of mine who he's made some of the coolest masks I've ever seen. He's been making them for years. I met him on the old HMA website years ago, and he's worked on real deal Hollywood movies doing, you know, special effects type work. And I want to feature two pieces that I own by him. I've had several of his things over the years, and these two are here to stay, no doubt. And to think I almost sold these over the years makes me freak out now, because I would never let them go. They're so badass, and you've probably seen them in the background here in some of these videos. I'm talking about these amazing bloody Yetis. The first one I got was this particular copy here. Well, they're not blood. One's bloody, one's not. When I saw this one, it really reminded me of masks I would see in the 80s as a kid. Masks with hair were always something that kind of attracted me, not in a weird way, but I just thought they were cool. Like you know, beasts with hair were so neat looking. And that bloody Yeti was a great purchase. I almost sold it like a fool, and guys still try to buy it from me, and I don't think I'll ever get rid of it. Then one day, Justin decides to sell a prototype Yeti, and that thing it's incredible. I've never really talked about these much. I just had to show you these real quick because we're going to talk about some vintage beasts on this episode, and these two take the cake. I mean, they're so wicked looking. Justin, I mean, you could, obviously the boy is talented, and I wonder if you'd make me another one of these soon. Can you make me another one, Justin? Like a whole different one in the series. Make another one that looks like these guys, but just a little different, you know? Maybe one with black hair would be badass from this mold. Hey, a boy can dream, right? So anyway, let's move on to some vintage hairy beasts now, and we're going to start the show. So in the 1960s, Don Post made these custom ape outfits that you see here. And they happened to show this guy in the 1966 Monster Calendar. It was shown on one of the pages of that calendar, but it was never offered as a mask at the time. And they had a pretty big demand for it. So I'm going to show you what Don Post had Pat Newman sculpt up for people to purchase as a gorilla. Don't even think about scratching that mummy's leg. Yeah, you, the famous Don Post Hollywood gorilla. And this was Don Post's response to that demand for the head that was shown on the gorilla suit in the Monster Calendar in 1966. Like I said, Don Post was not producing that as a mask, and there was a great demand for it. So Don had Pat Newman sculpt this Hollywood gorilla, and it became a very popular mask for Don Post Studios. I would say this is definitely a rare mask. There's not many old copies like this out there. They all seem to kind of fall apart, and usually they start cracking right in here and splitting on this lip really bad when I've seen them over the years. But they ended up making like 70s and 80s copies of this. The one in the 80s was named the Congo, though, which I have one on the shelf. I'll pull it down and show you what it looked like. It was a little different looking than this actual vintage copy of the original Hollywood gorilla. The one on the left is called the Congo, which was released around 84, 85, I think. And kind of rare. There's not a lot of Congos out there. Definitely, this, though, is definitely the rarest version of this ape. And I'm going to get into another Don Post ape that a lot of you may recognize from a lot of 80s movies. And for the record, he's not always crazy looking like this. I usually have his hair kind of flattened, but I kind of pull it all out for this video. But this one was also seen in the Illustrated History of Don Post Studios book. You'll see that same copy photographed in there. In '82, this was released. It was known as the Custom Gorilla, but it was also called the Delgado Gorilla because it was sculpted by Marcel Delgado, who, if you know, sculpted King Kong in the early 30s. It was originally made, though, out of fiberglass for a white gorilla that Don Post Studios made for a movie by Universal called The Perils of Pauline back in 1967. But at the last minute, Universal decided they wanted a brown gorilla, so they actually painted the hair brown, and there was no more white gorilla for that film. So this mask was later used again, well, the sculpt was later used again in 1970 for Myra Breckinridge. Back in the 70s, this mask was available as a special order piece by Don Post, but then finally it was a production piece released in the catalog back in 1982. So I'm going to show you something cool, though, that I did as a project regarding one of the movies I just mentioned. So I'll show you something awesome. So I don't know how many years ago it was now, but I was able to score a blank copy. I wanted to recreate that white gorilla that never was for that Perils of Pauline film. I thought it'd be a cool idea just to make a white version, since they're all like this. You see the black ones all the time. And since Universal canceled that idea at the last minute, I said, you know what? I'm going to make a white one like it was intended for that movie. And so I sent the blank copy to the Tharps, to Rob and Kathy Tharp, and they made that white gorilla that never was. So look at that crazy thing. Check out the nice detailing from that beautiful Don Post casting I got. And this is the earlier version because of the difference in the teeth. See the teeth over here compared to these? That's the first version. Rob and Kathy did a great job on this thing. If I remember, I think Rob painted the ape, Kathy did the eyes, Rob did all the crazy hair work on this thing. But he's pretty big. He's a big old white ape. And I thought it came out amazing. I've never been disappointed by the Tharps' work, that's for sure. And they did a killer job on making that lost white gorilla that never was in that film. I'm not like a huge fan of that movie or anything like that. I just thought it'd be a cool idea to make that white Delgado gorilla that they changed at the last minute and turned brown for that film. As you can see, these are sizable pieces, you know. They're not small masks by any mean. That's more of a bust now. It's foam filled. But that's a wearable Halloween mask, that '82 Delgado Gorilla. If you haven't guessed yet where you probably saw this gorilla, I'm about to show you one of my favorite movies of all time, Trading Places.
Oh, it's New Year's. Let them have their fun.
Alright, I started this video with two awesome Yetis by my buddy Justin Mabry, and now I'm going to close the video with two cool Yetis by Don Post Studios. Here's Don Post Studios' version of the Yeti. The left is the 70s release, and then on the right you've got the 80s. And that 80s copy was a brand new, it was new in the bag, tagged, never worn, store stock when I found it. The thing is absolutely perfect. But that's a really cool mask. You don't see a whole lot of these pop up. Definitely one of my favorite Don Post masks that I should I should take a little time to try to brush out the hair on the 70s mask. This is not how these looked from the factory. They were nice. The hair was more nicer like that, and they kind of like old hair, like will start turning into dreadlocks almost. This should be brushed nicely. Anytime you see an old 70s Wolfman, or even my awesome 70s Cowardly Lion, the hair starts getting that weird crinkly effect, and it's not how it was. So it was more like this when it was laid nicely. So maybe I'll try to correct that on this 70s piece. I did that with that awesome Mad Doctor there. That's a really, really rare one there. The only copy I've seen of that early 70s Mad Doctor. And that looks like the one in the 72 catalog, I believe. I'll try to show you a photo of that, but what a cool mask that is. But the hair was the same way on that as it was with this one, so that's not how they looked. But still, cool mask, and cool video on these hairy beasts tonight. Hope you liked it for number 18. I have no idea what we're doing tomorrow, but it should be pretty fun, and I'll see you guys again.